Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining the South Africa session. In South Africa, the second most popular song after the national anthem is a sports song. And South Africa is known for its sport prowess. I know that you've had a long session, so allow us to teach you our sports war cry. So I'm gonna ask my team here to stand up, and we're gonna start. And those of you who know it, join us. So let's all stand up, shake our legs, and sing Shosholoza, Shosholoza, Kulezo ndaba isimela siphume South Africa. Shosholoza, show. There's a prize for an audience member who claps the most and who dances the most. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then we've got some items that Olivia will share with you. So, and it's gonna be for the people who stay the longest. Okay? So there's a prize for the people who stay with us the longest. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Phumela Salela, and I'm the UK country head for Brand South Africa. We're going to start by sharing with you the 10 good reasons why you should invest in South Africa.
Ten reasons why you should invest in South Africa. Number 1, hot emerging market. Number 2, the number 1 diversified economy in Africa. Number 3, the largest presence of multinationals on the African continent. Number 4, progressive constitution and independent judiciary. Number 5, favorable market access to global markets. Number 6, abundant natural resources. Number 7, advanced financial services and banking sector. Number 8, world-class infrastructure and logistics. Number 9, young, trainable labor force. And number 10, excellent quality of life.
Can we give a big round of applause for our beautiful, marvelous investment destination called South Africa? Ladies and gentlemen, as I indicated, I am not alone. I am with Team South Africa, and I'm going to ask each member of our team to introduce themselves. Let's start from Terry all the way to Raji.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and friends of South Africa. My name is Terry Gale. I'm chairman of Exporters Western Cape. I'm very heavily involved in marketing and promoting the Western Cape region, and I'm one of those people that says every problem has a solution, as you'll hear later. Thank you for joining us, and as you can see from our friend Phumela, we as South Africans, we don't consider ourselves, we are actually Africans, and we are warm. We are incredibly warm, not just temperature-wise, in every other way. So we love life, we have a passion for living, and we have a passion for our continent. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Tapiwa Miranda, Associate Director at Leapfrog Investments. We are a growth equity investor in emerging markets, predominantly Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, with a speciality in financial services and healthcare opportunities.
Hi, my name is Sam. I am the founder and CEO of Sonari Capital. We are a growth stage private equity fund. We invest across the continent, but mainly in South Africa, and investments that have global and regional expansion opportunities coming out of South Africa. I might be the one responsible for all of this fanfare. I said to Pumela that the last time I was here, we had a very boring session, and I don't like doing boring. So be prepared. We are all very eager to share our story in terms of how we invest and for exciting outcomes in the South African market.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Pumela didn't say part of country duty required us to sing. Didn't quite prepare for that. I'm Mamidupi Matsipa. I'm CEO of a fund manager called Atta Capital. Atta means to grow in a South African language, Sepedi. We are essentially set up as a fund manager to raise third-party capital from private and institutional investors. We invest in the mid-market private equity space. We currently have 3 funds under management, and we invest or have just over, call it $90 million in AUM.
Hi everyone, I'm Stili Charalambos. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Daily Maverick. We're an influential, independent and investigative news outlet in South Africa. We're 13 years old. We have a staff complement of about 120 people who look to keep a lot of people in check with our journalism, focused on accountability and looking into the abyss of South African politics, and sometimes sharing not such great news, but hopefully keeping people in line and in check. And we're a growing organization, having created 120 new jobs in a sector that's lost 60% of its workforce since we started.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Rajiv Daya. I am the head of investments at Founders Factory Africa. So Founders Factory is a global investor in technology startups, corporate-backed. We operate on 3 continents, and as of last week, we opened up in Asia, so 4 continents around the world. We've invested, I think, across the board over 300 tech startups. We've gone on to raise close to $1 billion. And Founders Factory Africa is headquartered in Johannesburg, which is where I'm based. We're a team of about 45 operators who support and invest in startups across fintech, health tech, and agri-tech. So it's a pleasure to be here, and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. Very soon we're going to call you the tech man, because Rajiv is edu-tech, health tech, everything tech across Africa. So let's just kick off our conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a conversation amongst ourselves, and then we're going to ask you to also have a conversation with us. So as we are chatting, please note your questions and how you want to engage with us. Is that okay? So let's start with you, Mamidupi, because you've got experience in private equity transactions, corporate financial solutions, business strategy, and corporate governance. And today we're talking about why invest in South Africa. And can you give our esteemed audience here a macro overview on the changing investment climate in South Africa?
Yeah, thanks, Pumela. So I guess we, as I mentioned, we are in the mid-market private equity space. So we are on the ground, essentially investing in unlisted entities in South Africa. And I guess I must start by saying, yes, it is a tough environment, I think, for mid-market companies to operate in. But there is still a compelling investment case. As a manager in our space, I think there are probably 3 things that we look at. First of all, there is still a vibrant and active market for entrepreneurs within our country in various sectors. I think mentioning vibrant, I must also talk to the fact that they are very resilient. I think a lot of companies have shown, I guess, their staying power. It's always inspiring to see unlisted entities continue to operate and thrive in our environment. And they're all in need of capital, replacement capital and growth capital. If you look at our latest industry survey, a big proportion of the capital that is being invested by private equity managers is in the growth and development space, which really means that it has impact on, I guess, growth in our market. There's growth capital requirements for growth onto the continent, which has obviously growth and return impact. There are various opportunities despite the challenges. If you look at the growing sectors driven by some of our challenges around energy, infrastructure, healthcare, there's plenty of opportunities where we have seen joy and an opportunity to make a difference in those sectors. Secondly, from my perspective as a private equity manager, it's about being able to use our capital to essentially make a difference. Our nature as private equity is precisely about boots on the ground. And from that perspective, we are active investors, always looking for opportunities to help our companies essentially use our capital to make an impact. We look at elements such as transformation and ESG, and essentially use or have our expertise as a tool to help these companies. Thirdly, I think is about the opportunity to exit. Sitting on a number of panels this week, I think the conversation around exits on the continent came up quite a bit. And I think from our perspective, there's really an active market, I guess, from a private equity perspective. I think the industry itself has grown. There are a whole lot more players in the market, which obviously provides opportunities for us from an exit perspective. I think I have my fellow panelists here who can talk about the growth in the venture capital space, which creates opportunities for us in terms of investment opportunities here in the mid-market space. And then, given that, as I said, there are many more players in the market, there is an opportunity for us to exit to each other. So, Pumela, I think a number of opportunities, and I think my fellow panelists can talk to more of it, but that's in a nutshell where we're at.
Thank you so much, Mama Dupi. I think let's come then to Samantha, because we do acknowledge that in any investment environment, there are challenges. And so can you share with us how you navigate this changing investment climate in South Africa and in a way that you are still able to get your return on investment?
So I think, we sit here and we kind of take for granted that everyone in the room has a solid understanding of the macro challenges that we face. And there are several, there are many. We won't spend too much time harping on each particular one of it, but one of the kind of baseline challenges, so we have a lot of structural challenges, structural inequality, structural poverty, and one of the most difficult things about operating in the South African environment is that we have been without growth for quite some time, right? And there are many reasons for that, and we're not going to dig too deep into that here today, other than to say that there is a very positive sense of conviction around the structural reforms that are needed to make those changes, to deliver a higher growth economy, but they are too slow. And we sit in a bit of an environment of what I very sadly say is very much own goals, right? So a lot of this is not externally inflicted. It has been over a period of time, several challenges. I'm really glad that Daily Maverick is here today because I would like to praise them for the role that they have played in addressing and keeping us on the straight and narrow. So again, without sharing too much, because that's not the purpose of today, it is about being contextual around the environment that we operate in. But what this means is, so we're operating in a low growth environment, and I have this very sad misfortune of having always operated my entire career. So when South Africa was in a high growth stage, I was in the US, and we were in a recession there, and then I moved back to South Africa, and then we went into global financial crisis, and South Africa never really fully emerged from that pattern of low growth after that. So that doesn't sound like a really great reason to come to South Africa, but as a matter of fact, and I'll share some specific examples, there is an inordinate amount of opportunity in every economic environment, right? So my message is kind of twofold, and I'll share some more specifics on how you'd get returns, what kind of approach you take from an investment perspective, and why it's actually more compelling than going to a high growth market. And obviously a lot of that sits in the pricing, right? So if you're going into hot markets, you're paying hot prices, and it's very difficult to get investment returns on that basis. So there's certainly an approach from an investment perspective, but also not only can you get your globally competitive returns investing in pockets of opportunity in the South African market, but you can also give a lot of meaning to your money. And I don't want to repeat what Mamodupi has said, but it's an enormous advantage that we get to have in our role as particularly private equity investors, being in the real economy and actually making an active impact on the real economy. So we may not be seeing it at a macro level in terms of the growth and the prospects, but perhaps we'll give everyone else a chance to come back to it, but to talk further. But I'd be happy to share, one or two investment opportunities that give examples of this. But I want to share that, for example, our portfolio prior to COVID, so obviously COVID's a bit complicating, but the South African environment in the 1 and 3 year period prior to that had just over 0% GDP growth. And our portfolio companies on a 1 year basis grew by their revenue by 30% and on a 3 year basis by 17%. So this is just to give you a sense of the fact that there are opportunities that are disconnected from GDP growth, and we can talk about what themes you focus on in order to achieve that.
Thank you so much, Samantha. And I would also like that at some point, if there's a member of the audience who has successfully invested in South Africa, please can you just share with us, later on, just raise your hand and then we will make sure that you have the opportunity to also share. Ladies and gentlemen, Samantha is also a director on the board of the Southern African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, which is SAVCA. So you are welcome to engage with her even outside the context of our discussion right now. Now let's come to you, Tapiwa. You do deals across the continent, and you are exploring and expanding as an investment officer for Leapfrog Investment. Now, what is your approach to investing in the continent and South Africa in particular?
Thank you. So we are an impact-oriented investor. We look to deliver financial inclusion and healthcare inclusion in the investments that we make. So we are very consumer-oriented, either investing in businesses that serve low to middle-income consumers directly or enable businesses that serve those consumers. When it comes to the South African landscape, to Samantha's point, to Mamodupi's point, there are pockets of the economy that remain underserved despite, especially in financial services, a very robust and healthy financial services sector where people still struggle to get access to products. One of Leapfrog's Leapfrog's very first investment out of its first fund was in the South African insurance sector, a company called All Life, where they were the first dedicated underwriter for people, life insurance underwriter for people with HIV. That is a risk that at the time, and still today, had a big stigma associated with it, and it was deemed uninsurable, so people wouldn't be able to get, a mortgage because you can't get credit life cover. Those are the type of opportunities that we look for in the markets that we serve, and there are several businesses that are being formed today that still look to target that sort of underserved pocket.
there's always an opportunity for the underserved pocket. You know, yesterday when I was listening to many of the discussions in the conference, some were saying South Africa is already a developed market and they're not looking into South Africa as an investment opportunity. And I think what you are highlighting and what I would like to bring to our attention in this room is that, you know, South Africa has two worlds. There is the developed part of South Africa, and there's the underdeveloped part of South Africa, and there is still an opportunity within the underdeveloped, and this is where we can talk impact investing and even the entire ESG intervention that the whole world is trying to promote at the moment. Now we have Starlee, who is from the Daily Maverick. Can you tell us what is on the ground? What is the South African opportunity? Because you spend time on the ground, you are in the media space, so surely you have different perspectives on what the South African opportunity is from the ground up.
Yeah, a lot of great businesses create value by solving problems. So I guess we have a lot of opportunity then. In that we have some pretty big problems to solve. But if I look back at how resilient the country has been, how resilient the economy has been despite all these challenges, it shows that there's a hell of a lot of fundamentals that are still there, and that with a couple of tweaks in policy, a couple of improvements in accountability and governance, then we really have the opportunity to fly, I think. So that's why we keep investing in a sector that has experienced a lot of challenge globally, and why we keep investing in our people, in innovation, because we believe in these fundamentals that are there, and we see them wherever we go. And so for us, it's about balancing the reality of our challenges with the hope and optimism that we see embedded in the talent of our people, in the resilience of our economy, and the opportunity for really massive growth if we get just a few things right.
And I think there's a bit of a personal story to you there, because you are a chartered accountant and you worked in London's banking sector, but you saw it fit to return to South Africa and start the work that you have done. So any South Africans who are in the room, banking sector or any sector within London, we also invite you to plow back your skills into South Africa, either by going back or in your spare time. In Brand South Africa, the organization that I represent, we have an initiative called Play Your Part, which says that you can be anywhere in the world, but when you've got time, please use your time, your skills, your networks to plow back into South Africa. I just felt that I just needed to share that as well. And so Rajiv, I'm calling you the tech man, fintech, health tech, agri-tech, edu-tech, Africa. I think those are your hashtags, right? Next to your name. So how do you intertwine investing in South Africa with the rest of the African continent? And what have you done in terms of investments, the environment, everything, exits, intangibles? Just share with us, your whole approach to the African continent.
Great, thanks, Pamela. I just want to do a quick time check to make sure. Does this session end at 12:30? Just so that I... Okay.
Thank you, Olivia, because we're like crossing our fingers. The one thing you must know about South Africans is that we are very passionate in everything that we do. And if you don't give us a time frame, hey, we will talk. We are a nation that talks. Okay, Rajiv, Olivia has extended our time, and please bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Cool. I mean, I'm the VC guy, so I can pivot if we needed to change at the last minute. So, look, let me start with an overarching, I guess, juxtaposition in some ways. I look at hundreds of pitch decks, and we see the opportunity for Africa, the opportunity. And what does every single pitch deck have in common? Population growth, massive, huge population, youthful population. And to be honest, I think to myself, that's a crisis. Because as you've heard from Sam, zero growth. Who's going to create jobs? How are we going to support this massive population growth? And so what we're really, really passionate about is the future of work, the future of employment. South Africa is, it's a known fact. We've got huge unemployment rates. And so a fundamental principle that governs what we're trying to do at Founders Factory Africa is we have this firm belief that talent is evenly distributed, but access to resources are not. So that's just a sort of, founding principle for us. But in terms of South Africa, on a relative basis, looking at the rest of the continent, I think there's 5 points that come to mind, many of which were touched on during the video. And I would say the first is macro. So start at the top. Find me a country and I'll give you the macro issues. There's no perfect country from a macro standpoint, but if we just use a couple of proxies for the purpose of conversation on a relative basis, if you look at COVID until now, over the last sort of 2.5 years, South Africa's currency, for example, has appreciated by 5% relative to 40% depreciation in Nigeria, Egypt as well, I think 30%, the Kenyan shilling sort of 20%. So, if you look at the top 4 markets, the other thing is ease of doing business, if you do subscribe to the way in which that's put together, we're in the business of taking minority stakes. So minority interest protection, for example, corporate governance, etc. We fare pretty well on a relative basis. The second thing, and I think something that doesn't get a lot of attention, is talent and IP. So we're obviously in an environment right now where there's this question of brain drain and talent leaving the continent. And behind the scenes, we have really amazing tertiary institutions in South Africa that are producing incredible research and IP. We have something called the CSIR, which is the Center for, or the Council for Science and Industrial Research. And what most people don't realize is the largest 3D printer in the world, for example, is housed at the CSIR. There are people who are sitting at the forefront of stem cell programming or reprogramming, 3D printing, etc. And I think something that also deserves a shout out is that these are not just South Africans, these are not just women, these are African women leading these initiatives in stem cell reprogramming and 3D printing, etc. There's 2 ladies, Dr. Ntombi Mate and Dimakhatso Gumede, who are leading these incredibly innovative areas of developing IP that can be commercialized. So we also have something called a University Technology Fund, which has been created to commercialize the incredible IP that's coming out of South Africa. The third is the enabling environment. So some of you would have seen recently that Google has invested or committed $1 billion for cloud service infrastructure. AWS, for example, is in Cape Town. We have a pretty well-developed and established corporate sector. So, you've got distribution opportunities, you've got exit opportunities, and we've touched on exits earlier on. You've got the government and quasi-government organizations that are putting in tons of capital into the space through programs. So, you've got an enabling infrastructure that's developing quite well. And then, of course, exits. Who cares about investment if you're not going to make it commercially viable and generate exits? And yes, South Africa over the last couple of years has had, relative to Kenya, Nigeria, and Egypt, the other 3 of the big 4, has had the smallest share of absolute or aggregate investment as far as venture capital is concerned, but the highest number of exits, and by quite some margin. So second place is Egypt, but South Africa is 60% more than Egypt and has cumulatively more acquisitions over the last couple of years than the other 3 markets combined. So, in terms of exits, as far as exits going on to exchanges are concerned, with the JSEs, sort of $1.4, $1.5 trillion, which is 20x greater than the second exchange on the continent, which is Nigeria. South Africa's alternative exchange in itself is 3x larger than Kenya, Egypt, and Nigeria combined. And then finally, I'm gonna pause here. The 5th is what I call the intangible. And for those interested in neuroscience, the reality is that the majority of our decision-making happens through emotion. And I thought I saw Yvonne in the room. Is Yvonne here still? No, so a guy by the name of Jim Chu from Untapped who's here. I call this the Jim Chu effect because I sat with him about a year and a half ago in Cape Town overlooking winelands, and he's from Silicon Valley, and he has an annual showcase in Cape Town, and his philosophy is very simple. He says, I bring investors to Cape Town, they fall in love with the place, and the investment takes care of itself. I don't need to convince them that this is an investment destination. And so these are the sort of intangible or Jim Chu effects that I think play a huge role in who's interested and who's not in South Africa as a destination.
Thank you, Rajiv. You've just mentioned Cape Town, which is in the Guinness Book of Records as one of the cities you need to see before you die. So touch wood. Let's all go to Cape Town. And I think it's a good opportunity to bring you, Terry, because you are the chairman of the Exporters Club in the Western Cape. And one thing we pride ourselves as South Africa is that we talk about our problems in the open, and we also seek solutions together. We've had, an energy crisis within South Africa, and you can just share with us, how, given that, yes, it has occurred as a disabler to our economy, but there's been some interventions. And also from an infrastructure point of view, because ports are important in terms of exports. What has been happening in that space to alleviate some of the, obstacles that we are finding in terms of the work that you do as exporters?
Thank you, Pamela, and it's a great opportunity as well. First of all, thank you very much. It's actually my co-panelists. You're a very hard act to follow. So I hope I can reach the high standard that you have. And I think, as I said at the beginning, you can actually feel the energy and you can feel our passion. I can feel it's coming across right at this table here. It's quite unique. This is why I'm very proudly African as well. Now, to answer your question, I digress, obviously, but to answer your question, and listening to all the panelists as well, the bottom line is we are in a crisis. We have to face it, and it's not just a South African crisis, it's a global crisis. Energy, we've just recently, since I've been in London for 2 weeks, we've seen what the possibility is of load shedding in the UK. Who would have ever thought of that? However, as you probably you've read the press, you see what's going on in South Africa with our Eskom as well, with the load shedding crisis that we have had. And I can honestly say that through engagement, the bottom line is we have to engage with one another. And I've engaged with the Eskom CEO, Andre de Ruyter, and I don't believe anybody else, who am I? Yet he engages with me. This is the incredible thing of our country. The door is open to engage with these people if we want to. Many people will say derogatory things, not having the facts. And I think that's the problem of social media, a lot of problems of the press, and my constant go to here as well. But this is the problem. We feed off negativity. We feed off negative press. And I am living proof of actual engagement with one another. And as Pamela has mentioned here as well, the ports a few years ago in Cape Town and South Africa were a major disaster. The money and the funds that were allocated to the ports, we cannot deny it. It went into corruption. However, due to that, we had the infrastructure, major challenges faced. But there's a big but and there is a however. Because, as I've said previously, every problem has a solution. By engaging with all the potential and all the major stakeholders, and our port manager in Cape Town in particular, the Transnet Group, have been phenomenal by engaging with us. By talking to one another, we've met every week, twice a week online, to make sure that we address the problems. So industry has the engagement as a conduit. That's where Exporters comes in. We're a conduit. We're non-partisan. We're not a parastatal. We are funded by our members, which gives me a voice. As you can hear, it's quite a loud one. But we have to have an independent voice. I represent all bodies and all stakeholders. For the bottom line is my passion. My passion is Cape Town, Western Cape, South Africa, Africa. And that's my love. I think those who read magazines nowadays still, I love magazines, and I love the Brit, and I'm not doing marketing here, the Continental Traveller. just brought out its Reader's Top 100 for the November issue, Cape Town listed at number 6 as top world city. And please remember, Cape Town is a long-haul destination. It's not just round the corner for most people. The good news is that Cape Town is so open for business. Cape Town Airport was voted the best airport in Africa for the 7th time. So it says something as well. Another fact you might not know is, from an export point of view, we are the second biggest citrus exporter in the world. We have the best oranges in the world. Don't tell Spain this because they don't like us. They tried to change the regulations. We overrode them because it was against World Trade Organization. But I can go on for hours, and I promise you I won't. It's been an absolute honor. All I can say, we have incredible investment opportunities. There's still upgrade for infrastructure. There's great opportunities for redevelopment in our city. I've actually put a presentation there because Cape Town is controlled by a central city improvement district for 10 years now, which means you can virtually eat off the pavement if you want to. 24 hours, 7 protection. They want investment in it. It's the only city in South Africa, and it is the most beautiful city. I'm sorry, I've got no allegiance to the place. No, I love it, and I'm very honored to be here. Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you so much, Terry. I mean, that is a very positive note to end from a man who's a chairman of the Exporters Club in the Western Cape. He's a member of Port Consultative Committee with relevance to infrastructure development in the Port of Cape Town's framework. He's a managing director of GLFC Logistic Consultants, and he has an active industry experience of more than 50 years, even though he looks 50. But he's been in the industry for more than 50 years. So thank you, Terry. 1 minute for a question from the audience. 1 minute. Oh, no more. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are here to engage with you. If you've forgotten our names, just look at our rainbow scarves. Our scarves represent the Rainbow Nation that we are. We represent all races, all classes, all formations, all faiths. That is the South Africa that we are, and you are welcome to join us. Thank you for our indulgence.